I'm Lily. The cold handcuffs clicking around Ethan and his mother's wrists still ring in my ears. As I stand in the rented Victorian, watching them being led away, the weight that has been pressing on my chest for months finally lifts. The lies, the fear, and the manipulation are all coming to an end. It all started when I built a life I once thought only existed in magazines. At a young age, I worked as a financial analyst in downtown Seattle. By day, I was surrounded by the hustle and bustle of the city, with glass skyscrapers reaching towards the sky. By night, I returned to my cozy home in the Queen and District. It was a 2-story Victorian house painted a soft blue with white trim, sitting at the end of a quiet street. I had worked hard for this house. I remember opening a separate account labeled House Fund when I was 25. 5 years of sacrifice, saying no to vacations, skipping dinners out, and working long hours at the firm had finally paid off. This house was more than just a building. It was a symbol of my independence. One Monday morning, a man named Ryan Walker walked into my life. He was introduced as the new head of marketing at our firm. Tall, with broad shoulders and green eyes that seemed to see right through me, he carried an air of confidence. His smile was warm and made me feel special. I told myself to stay focused on my career. I had just achieved my dream of owning a house, and I was determined to pour my energy into my work. But Ryan had a way of breaking down my defenses. In meetings, he would linger by my side, asking insightful questions about my reports. After a successful client pitch, he leaned in and said, "You've got a talent that can't be taught, Lily. How about discussing strategy over dinner?" Normally, I avoided mixing my personal and professional life. But that evening, I found myself sitting across from him at a small bistro near Pike Place Market. We talked about everything but work, his travels around the world, my favorite spots in Seattle, and the little quirks of city life. Before I knew it, hours had passed, and I was laughing easily. When he insisted on walking me to my door and asked where I lived, I hesitated. There was something about the way his eyes scanned my clothes, my bag, that made me want to protect my most precious secret. So, I lied and said I rented an apartment near the Seattle Center. As weeks passed, our relationship grew stronger. Ryan was incredibly attentive. He sent flowers to my office and remembered the little things I liked. I found myself falling into a whirlwind romance I had only seen in movies. But I still kept the secret of my house. Whenever he dropped me off, I redirected him to a different neighborhood. When he stayed the night for the first time, I told him it was my grandmother's house and she was away, so I was just looking after it. He whistled in admiration at the beautiful architecture and said, "Your grandmother is so lucky. These Victorian houses are worth a fortune." I forced a smile and said, "She's always been generous." Then, Ryan told me he wanted me to meet his mother, Evelyn. "Evelyn will love you," he said one Friday evening over dinner. His tone was bright, but there was a flicker of expectation in his eyes. "She's a bit protective, but once she gets to know you, she'll see what I see." I agreed, though I felt a knot in my stomach. We met at a fancy restaurant in the Belltown neighborhood. Evelyn was already seated when we arrived. She was in her late 50s, with a regal posture and short, silver, gray hair. Her diamond earrings sparkled under the soft light. As we approached, her eyes swept over me from head to toe. "So, this is Lily," she said, her smile precise. Her voice was like that of a strict school principal, warm on the surface, but with an underlying edge. During the meal, she asked me about my work, my family, and my future goals. Then, she dropped a bombshell. "And your grandmother," Ryan mentioned, "she has a house. Where is it exactly?" My fork froze in midair. I swallowed hard and calmly replied, "In Montana. She's living with relatives now, but she let me stay there for a while." Evelyn's eyes narrowed slightly. "How generous of her. Is she in good health?" I smiled politely and said, "She has her ups and downs, but she's very sharp and takes good care of her affairs." After the meal, as we stepped outside, Ryan put his arm around me and said, "She's tough, but don't take it personally. She's just overly protective since my dad left." But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. Something about Evelyn's questions felt invasive, as if she was looking for a weakness. Our wedding was supposed to be a simple affair, but Evelyn inserted herself into every decision. She chose the flowers, debated the seating arrangements, and insisted on a particular bakery for the cake. When I suggested a vineyard in Woodinville for the reception, she dismissed it as too far and steered us towards a downtown hotel. Ryan would just smile apologetically and say, "Mom's just trying to help. She's organized a lot of events." After the wedding, when our honeymoon was canceled at the last minute due to a so-called major business opportunity, I was disappointed but tried to understand. Back at her house, things started to change. Ryan began working late, and his phone would buzz constantly. He would answer calls in hushed tones on the balcony and quickly shut his laptop when I entered the room. Evelyn started dropping by more often, sometimes bringing food and other times stacks of papers she claimed were recipes or magazine clippings. One evening, I returned home earlier than usual. As I walked into the house, I heard voices coming from the kitchen. "Don't rush it," Ryan was saying, his voice tense. "We don't have time to waste," Evelyn countered sharply. "Last time you hesitated, and look what happened. We can't afford another failure." I froze in the hallway, my heart pounding. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to hear more. "Relax," Ryan muttered. "This time it's a whole house, not just a condo. And Lily isn't stupid. They all think they're clever until love blinds them," Evelyn scoffed. "She'll sign when the time is right. Just be ready. The paperwork is prepared." My heart sank. I realized that my instinct to hide my house ownership was right. Ryan and Evelyn were like predators, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But I said nothing. I knew I needed to gather more evidence before confronting them. One Tuesday evening, while Ryan was out with clients, I was cleaning the upstairs bedroom. I noticed that the bottom drawer of his dresser didn't close properly. A corner of paper caught my eye. When I opened the drawer, I found a slim leather folder. Inside were property deeds with unfamiliar names, quick claim forms with county seals, and signatures that looked suspiciously similar. There were also photographs of older women standing in front of houses, each with a stiff smile. At the bottom of the folder, I found 2 driver's licenses with Ryan's picture but different names, Jason Miller and Andrew Harris. I was in shock. I stuffed the documents back into the folder and put it back exactly as I found it. That night, after Ryan fell asleep, I sat in my office and called an old college friend, Maya. Maya had become a detective in the Seattle Police Department's investigative division. I told her everything in a hushed voice, and she promised to look into it. A few days later, Maya called me back. "You were right, Lily. Ryan has used at least 3 other identities in the past decade, and Evelyn has been flagged for real estate fraud and elder exploitation cases. They've scammed women out of their properties through marriage and forged deeds, but there hasn't been enough evidence to arrest them." I was devastated but also filled with determination. I decided to take matters into my own hands. Maya and I came up with a plan. We found an actress, an 80-year-old named Beatrice, who could easily pass as my grandmother. She had a warm but authoritative presence. I spread the word to Ryan that my grandmother's health was getting worse, and she wanted to transfer the house to me legally. She didn't trust banks anymore, and wanted to meet a notary. Ryan's eyes lit up for a second, and then he smiled sympathetically and offered to help find a reliable notary. Within 24 hours, Evelyn showed up unannounced. "I heard about your grandmother's decision. She's a wise woman, but don't trust just any notary. We know someone who has handled family property for years," she said. I kept my cool and said, "That might be helpful. Grandma can be quite particular." The days leading up to the meeting were torture. I had to act normal around Ryan, smiling at him over breakfast and kissing him goodnight, all the while knowing that his true nature was about to be exposed. On the day of the meeting, we arrived at the rented Victorian in Magnolia. Beatrice, in the role of my grandmother, was sitting in an armchair by the bay window, looking every bit the matriarch. A real notary, licensed by the state of Washington, was already there, laying out the official grant deed papers. Evelyn brought in a fake notary, Mr. Thompson. When the real notary started to explain the transfer, Evelyn interrupted and said, We prefer someone we trust." She slid a folder across the table, and inside the deed was altered, with Ryan's name added next to mine. Beatrice feigned confusion and said, "Why does this say both of them? I thought this was for Lily alone." Evelyn quickly replied, "She's married now. Everything should be shared." I took a deep breath and said, "Actually, Grandma wanted the house in my name only. That was her wish." Ryan tried to smooth things over, but I had had enough. I reached into my bag and pulled out a USB drive. I played the recording of the kitchen conversation on my laptop. The color drained from Ryan's face, and Evelyn froze. Just then, the front door opened, and plain-clothes officers stepped in. Maya was at the front. "Seattle Police Department." "Step away from the table," she announced. The fake notary backed away, and Ryan and Evelyn were in shock. As the officers handcuffed them and read their Miranda rights, I finally felt free. The long, standing nightmare was over. In the following days, the evidence I provided, along with the testimonies of other victims, led to their conviction on multiple counts of fraud, conspiracy, and forgery. I filed for divorce, and the house remained mine, a symbol of my resilience and victory. 6 months have passed since the verdict. The fear that once haunted me has vanished. I sit on my porch on a foggy Saturday morning, sipping my coffee and watching the sunlight filter through the stained glass window in the stairwell. The house is more than just a home. It's a testament to my strength. I've learned that trust is important, but it must be verified. And I'll never let anyone else write the script of my life again.